We're running behind schedule. The program has taken longer than expected, so we'll move forward quickly. Juan Carlos spoke in an optimistic manner about the tremendous opportunity that Chile has in connection with the ongoing and crucial global energy transition. Climate change effectively compels us as a species to make progress in decarbonization, because the potential outcomes of a 3-degree increase would be catastrophic. The rise in temperature would have disastrous consequences for humanity's well-being and survival. At COP22 in Paris, our aim was to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. Currently, we have reached 1.1 degrees compared to the pre-industrial era. We will likely get to 2, slightly more. Now, this that appears effectively as a highly complex situation for humanity can potentially represent an opportunity for Chile. Chile, starting from the year 2012, has been facing challenges with total factor productivity and has been experiencing either zero or negative growth rates in its economy. Total factor productivity is the capability of the economy to generate additional value using the resources we possess. Furthermore, investment, which saw a significant growth between the years 2000 and 2010, has experienced an average growth rate of only 0.8% in recent years, indicating a noticeable slowdown compared to its previous performance. Productivity and investment have a significant impact on the growth of per capita GDP and per capita income. And all the analysis, given this context, indicates to us that Chile's trend growth for the upcoming years will not exceed 2%. It will be lower than 2%. In this way, we will not achieve development. In reality, Chile was converging towards the per capita income level of Portugal and Spain, but 10 years ago we stopped converging and they are moving away from us. Obviously, development is not just per capita income. We are concerned about sustainability, equity, supporting the most vulnerable. However, to achieve that, we need growth, more job opportunities. What makes global energy transition generate a unique and unexpected opportunity for development? Juan Carlos mentioned something. I am going to attempt to observe this more from the perspective of the territories, but also to take into account certain obstacles that create challenges that we need to tackle. The enhancement of worldwide climate action. I remind you of the 28th Conference of the Parties, COP28, which recently concluded, committed to a substantial reduction in the use of fossil fuels. Multiple countries aimed to set an expiration date, but couldn't. Several countries, including the European Union, plan to stop selling internal combustion vehicles from 2035. So let's look at the global context to see Chile's opportunity. We have a technological disruption in the field of energy where it becomes much cheaper to produce renewable energy. On the other hand, digital technologies become a very important factor in increasing productivity. However, they also indicated to us in the morning that artificial intelligence, GPT chat, and others are extremely energy intensive. So, how can we make sure that this amazing scheme, which is artificial intelligence and specifically generative AI, and has experienced a significant growth in the past few months, does not turn into a hindrance in terms of energy and water resource utilization, as stated earlier today? Strengthening climate action provides us with opportunities as it creates a virtuous cycle related to the new comparative advantages that Chile possesses. It was mentioned that the key to advancing decarbonization is the development of renewable energies that replace fossil fuels. Therefore, we have here the first factor, which is renewable energies that allow us to change the electric matrix to a decarbonized matrix. This transition is crucial in order to reduce carbon emissions and mitigate the impacts of climate change, making renewable energies a vital component of a sustainable future. It's a process that takes time and has challenges we'll see. Why is this so important? Because one way to reduce emissions in a series of productive processes that currently use fossil fuels is to electrify them. And if the electricity grid is decarbonized, that electrification decreases greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, the International Energy Agency points out that today, electricity represents about 20% of all energy consumed. We should reach between 40 and 50% by the year 2050. So there's a tech change and a decarbonization imperative that involves growing in the development of renewables and electrification, driven by the need to transition to cleaner energy sources and reduce carbon emissions. And that has a substantial impact on what is presently referred to as critical minerals. Why is this significant? Because electrification is fundamentally copper, the networks, the electrical networks. Moreover, renewable energies also necessitate critical minerals. Which specific critical minerals does the country of Chile possess? Lithium, copper. Very important. But we also have another phenomenon. If we are successful, we will surpass expectations, achieve decarbonization of the electric grid, and implement electric vehicles, whether they are hydrogen-powered or battery-powered. These vehicles will be exclusively electric and equipped with battery storage. As a result, there will be a rise in the demand for critical minerals. First, lithium. Today, vehicle batteries are fundamentally made of lithium. There is talk of the replacement of sodium batteries. However, given that the energy density is significantly lower, it is likely to happen in stationary storage for electrical systems. It is more difficult for vehicles. So here we have that an internal combustion vehicle uses 80 kilos of copper. An electric vehicle uses 80 kilos of copper compared to 20 kilos of an internal combustion vehicle. Then there will be a significant increase in demand for copper and a substantial increase in demand for lithium. Here I essentially have a study that demonstrates the extent to which these technologies will expand by the year 2040. And ranges are generated because it depends on how public policies act. Photovoltaic energy will increase between 2.5 and 3 times by 2040. The wind power between 1.8 and 3 times. Are we going to double the electrical networks, or are we going to have 3 times more? And the most impressive thing is that electric vehicles by 2040 will increase by a factor of 14 to 25 times. And that necessitates copper, a considerable amount, and lithium. In fact, the estimates and projections of the increase in demand for copper, for example, those made by the Committee of Experts on Fiscal Space and Trend Growth, which has just delivered a report on the entire fiscal discussion that is taking place, project that we will increase the global demand for copper from 24 million tons to 33 million tons by the year 2032. Millions of tons to 33 million tons in 2032. Increase. And if one examines the projects, that dark green line and that light green line are the ones currently being constructed and the ones currently in operation. What you see is a decline because the loss of copper, etc., decline, and a gap is created that has to be filled with new projects, but projects take time. So here is first and foremost an opportunity for Chile in this particular field. In lithium, the red line was the optimistic prediction for the year 2022, but in reality, the growth of the last year, almost 900,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent, is on the red line. That means that by 2030 we will increase our production of lithium carbonate from about 1 million tons to over 2 million tons in response to global demand. And project development takes time. And Chile also has a very interesting position. We had a price peak, a price boom. When it was my turn to negotiate the first lithium deal in 2016-2017, the prices I saw were $6,000 tons. In China, it reached 82,000 tons. Happily, in that negotiation, we established a royalty that as the price increased, the collection rate was higher, and over $10,000, it was 40% above the specific tax. And that is why in 2022, the Chilean state collected 2% of GDP from that negotiation and from the increase in the price of lithium and the increase in lithium production, as we will see shortly. What will happen in the future? The price dropped in reality by an amount of less than $20,000 per ton today. The prediction from experts is that due to the substantial increase in demand, which I have already mentioned is immense, we will experience periods of limited supply resulting in price surges. And because we have schemes in which the state participates to a significant extent, that implies an important fiscal situation for us. Juan Carlos has already spoken about hydrogen. Let's explore the opportunity for Chile. We have the best solar radiation and extraordinary winds in the world, the largest copper reserves and production, the largest lithium reserves, second in lithium production. And here arises a topic that perhaps we haven't talked much about. The possibility of producing synthetic fuels is something worth exploring. Clean fuels, substitute diesel, substitute gasoline. What does that necessitate? Green hydrogen made with renewable energies and CO2, and there are different sources of CO2. To combat climate change, one approach is to capture CO2 from the air. An alternative is to utilize biogenic CO2 from wood or the forestry industry for energy generation and paper production, resulting in CO2 emissions. These methods aid in reducing our carbon footprint and promoting sustainability, actively contributing to mitigating climate change and fostering a greener future for our planet. And if someone captures it at a significantly lower cost than capturing it from the atmosphere, they can obtain a substantial supply of tons of biogenic carbon dioxide. I estimated using conservative analyses that there were approximately 18 million tons of biogenic CO2, which could be utilized to produce a substantial amount of synthetic fuel. That is basically the approach. The assumption is to use only 50% of the CO2 production that would be captured in a specific way. What opportunity does it give us for the territories? Oops, I ran out of time. There's an impact in the north, mentioned earlier, related to the development of lithium, copper, and minerals. However, the crucial point is that nowadays the world demands traceability, particularly in terms of environment and society. Therefore, it is not just any production. In the south, in Magallanes, don't we have extraordinary winds? Indeed, there is a concern from the communities, from the population, that the country focuses solely on the export of ammonia or the export of methanol, and that they become export enclaves, and that does not generate much impact on the territory. However, it is important to note that having access to clean renewable energy, such as in Magallanes, generates a variety of opportunities for us to explore and utilize. For example, given that the Panama Canal is currently facing problems and in the future, with climate change, difficulties are expected. Having the maritime green ECHAB there, the most important in the southern hemisphere, where one provides ammonia or methanol to the fleets, and that generates an enormous amount of service requests. Sustainable salmon farming. What does this have to do with salmon farming? One of the problems of salmon farming is the effect on biodiversity, because it generates waste. But we move salmon production to land, reducing water column usage by up to 800 grams, resulting in a significant decrease in water consumption. And having cheap electricity, this becomes very cost-effective. We can also use green hydrogen to transport fish in whale boats without emitting. So we reduce the impact on biodiversity, and we generate less CO2 as an industry, and thereby reduce our carbon footprint. And something that I think they will be mentioning tomorrow is the possibility of creating a sustainable hydrochemical forest industrial pole using biogenic CO2 in the plantations of the central macrozone, southern macrozone. And that's a great chance to transform our petrochemical industry, which was more in the 8th region, into an industry, and the cellulose industry into a fully sustainable industry. It is the concept of biofibers. There are difficulties because renewable energies are intermittent. They are variable. And today there's not enough transmission capacity, and thus there's an increasing spillage. This is a topic that requires policy measures, regulatory changes, incentives for investment. If there are no incentives to invest in storage, we will hardly be able to solve it. This used to be just a problem in the north. At present, it is a topic that has been rapidly spreading even to the city of Puerto Montt in the south of Chile. Because incentives are established for small or medium generation systems to produce energy during the daytime. There's too much solar energy during the day, so it must be spilled. That means the marginal cost, short-term price, is zero, but they're paid a high-level price for it. Those ought to be modified, their regulations. Lithium, briefly, a few seconds. We have a lot of lithium in the north. Salar de Atacama is the jewel, the crown. However, the major challenge is to address the water problem, minimize the utilization of evaporation methods, and integrate technologies such as direct extraction or alternative approaches that enable sustainable development. That is the challenge in order to increase the growth in lithium production. And in Magallanes, where there has been significant opposition to the establishment of wind turbine generators in wind farms, there is Cabo Negro. That is the region that has the potential to be developed into a green port for voyages to Antarctica and for facilitating the green corridor of maritime transportation. Somehow that is the journey that Hernando de Magallanes made. There it is. And that is going to become a highly significant area once again. And we have to offer green methanol, ammonia, shipyards, services. This generates a whole important development that is crucial for the future growth and sustainability of the region. Lastly, and to conclude, Punta Arenas is the ultimate destination prior to entering the darkness of the Antarctic for satellites. Satellites produce approximately 40% of the data up to this point, prior to the existence of generative internet and generative artificial internet, which are expected to have a significant impact. However, satellites still account for 40% of the data. This is the final location where data is recorded. This region possesses the coldest climate in Chile at sea level, thus enabling us to establish a worldwide logistics hub and also serve as a site for data centers that utilize environmentally friendly, cost-effective electricity. This will help us address the concern discussed this morning regarding the necessity of data centers and the substantial energy they consume for artificial intelligence, which in turn generates heat. Therefore, A cold environment is ideal for this purpose. Consequently, the development of green hydrogen, green ammonia, and methanol in Magallanes is not only an export opportunity, but also an opportunity to transform this into a green tourist, logistics, and data hub for the world. That is the opportunity. Many thanks, grateful.